How does a guy really figure out that his loving wife is secretly seeing someone else? Honestly, there's only one answer for men like me: you don't. If you actually did know for sure, you'd probably have it out with the other man or walk out on your wife, wouldn't you? Still, there comes a point in a man's life when the truth pops up in the most unexpected way. That moment can sneak up on you when you least expect it. Let me share what happened to me. Sundays used to be pretty predictable in those days. My wife Stella always left early to play golf with her group of friends. My group, on the other hand, hit the course on Saturdays. At one time, all of us, guys and gals, played on the same day, but years back, the women decided that Saturdays were better for shopping, so they switched to Sundays. That particular Sunday, I dragged myself out of bed around 9 in the morning. I'd had a pretty good time the night before and was definitely feeling the effects. Honestly, I don't know how Stella managed to get up so early after we'd been out until almost 3. And let's just say, we didn't go straight to sleep when we got home. Stella tends to get a little more lively when she's had a few drinks. When I finally made it into the kitchen, I noticed that Stella had thoughtfully left the coffee pot on for me. I started making my usual Sunday morning breakfast, though, to be fair, my cooking skills aren't anything to brag about. Fried eggs, sausage, bacon, and a slice of bread, well, more burnt than fried if I'm honest. Stella never makes fried bread. That's a bit much, she always says. So, I was enjoying my breakfast when something odd caught my attention: the bottle of tomato ketchup I'd just grabbed from the cupboard. It was a brand new bottle, which I had to open since we'd finished the old one on Friday night after our grocery run. Stella had promised she'd pick up another bottle in town on Saturday, since we forgot to grab one at Asda on Friday. But here's the kicker: the label on the bottle clearly said Asda Smart Price, when it should have said Morrison's Better Buy. That Asda logo practically jumped out at me. Stella went shopping in town with her friends that Saturday, just like she always did, and supposedly picked up the ketchup while she was there. But the only big store in town is Morrison's. The Asda supermarket is all the way out by the bypass, not even close to her usual route. Stella wouldn't drive nearly 15 miles out of her way just for ketchup; she'd grab it at Morrison's if she needed it. And if she'd spent all morning window shopping with her friends in town, why make an extra trip to Asda for one thing? We'd already done our shopping at Asda the night before, and she even bought a few things at the George clothing section, but told me there wasn't anything else she wanted there. So why go back? At the time, I just brushed it off, assuming maybe one of her friends needed something from Asda. I let it go, at least, until the following Wednesday. That's when I was having lunch in the office cafeteria and overheard a couple of guys talking at the next table. Man, that place is always full. You can't get a room there on the weekend no matter what. Which place? Another guy asked. That new motor lodge by the bypass, right next to the Asda superstore. I tried to book a room there on Saturday for a couple hours with Ruby from Dispatch, but it was packed. Oh, you mean for a little private fun? If her husband finds out, you're dead meat. Did you hear what happened to the last guy who got caught? At that point, I stopped listening. My mind was running wild. No way, Stella wouldn't do that, would she? We'd been married nearly 25 years. She loves me and the kids. But then again, it would explain the weird ketchup bottle. Was I just being paranoid? Still, those doubts kept creeping back. I needed to find out what was really happening, but I had no idea where to start. That whole afternoon, I couldn't think about anything else. When I got home from work and saw Stella making dinner, I just sat there watching her. She looked incredible, honestly. After having the kids, she managed to get her figure back and kept it. Sure, she put on a few pounds, but it suited her. There aren't many women who look that good at 45, and she always outshone her friends. I used to be proud when I caught their husbands sneaking looks at her. Now, I just felt uneasy. Stella asked me if I was all right, and I told her I was just tired. She hugged and kissed me, suggesting maybe we should get an early night. That night, for the first time in 28 years, things just didn't work for me in the bedroom. Normally, I can go 2 or 3 times in a row, even at my age, though I'll admit things aren't quite like they were when I was young. Back when we first got married, I could go 7 times in a night. Sure, it left me aching, but I was unstoppable. But that night, nothing happened. Stella tried to comfort me, saying it was probably just stress and suggested I see a doctor. I played along, but deep down I knew what was wrong. I'd convinced myself Stella was cheating. She tried to get things going again in the morning, but I just couldn't. I knew I wouldn't be able to get back to normal until I found out the truth. For the next couple of days, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Was Stella really seeing someone else? The thought was eating me up, so eventually I decided I needed to talk it out with someone. I chose Danny. Now, Danny's not actually that young, just 10 years younger than the rest of us. He's about 35, and has been on my team for almost 12 years, but he's still the youngest. Danny went through a rough divorce a couple years ago after he caught his wife cheating, so I figured he'd know what I was going through. Danny took my concerns seriously right away. He told me I should try following Stella the next Saturday. He even offered to take my spot in my golf group he's filled in before when one of us was out. That way, I could use his car to tail Stella. His BMW had tinted windows, which are technically illegal in England, but the police had stopped bothering him about it. It actually worked out perfectly for me. So, Saturday morning, I got up early as usual and headed to the golf club to swap cars with Danny. By 8:15, I was parked up the road from my house, waiting to see what Stella would do. Around 9, she came out and got in her car. Normally, she'd pick up her friend since they usually carpooled. But this time, she drove straight to the big parking lot in town. She parked in a quiet corner and just sat there in her car. I parked nearby where I could watch and waited. About 10 minutes later, another car pulled up in front of her. I was getting more and more anxious, especially since she'd chosen a spot way off to the side, far from the shops. The other car drove off, and Stella followed it to the other side of the lot. Then both cars parked side by side, and out of the other car came her 4 friends. The 5 of them then headed off toward the shops together. You might think that would ease my mind. But something still felt off. Why did Stella drive herself instead of carpooling like before? In the past, all 5 would go together. Why take 2 cars now when they all live near each other? It just didn't add up. I waited there for 3 hours until they came back. Then I followed both cars out to the Asda on the bypass. They were inside for about 45 minutes, then came out, and I followed Stella home. I felt a little foolish, but mostly relieved. I went back to the golf club, swapped back to my car, and went home. Stella greeted me as she always did, with a hug and a kiss. To my surprise, she was in the mood for a little romance, and I have to admit, I was pretty eager too, since it had been a dry week for me. Honestly, it felt like Stella was trying to make up for lost time. We barely made it through the bedroom door before she pulled me close, practically undressing me as she got undressed herself. She was really enthusiastic, more than usual, and after we were done, she even surprised me by suggesting something she'd never been into before. That's when my suspicions started to resurface. See, in all our years together, Stella had never shown much interest in that particular activity, she just wasn't into it, except maybe after a few drinks. But this time, she brought it up herself and even had everything ready. That was new for us, and it left me wondering what had changed. That afternoon, we were all over each other. Stella was unusually enthusiastic, even urging me to try things she'd never been into before. The more she pushed for it, the more certain I became that she was trying to prove something, as if she sensed I was suspicious. I figured maybe her instincts told her I was onto her, so now she was putting on a show, trying to act like the perfect wife. Later that Saturday, we went out to dinner with our kids and their spouses. Both our son and daughter are married now, so we had the whole family with us. The evening was actually a lot of fun, and afterward, we stopped by a nightclub for a bit. It was more suited to the younger crowd, so Stella and I headed home around midnight. Once again, she seemed determined to wear me out, but by the time I woke up, she was already gone for her regular golf game. I skipped making breakfast that Sunday, I just didn't feel like it. As soon as I could, I left the house and drove out to the golf club. There's a hill nearby where you can see most of the course, so I parked there and pulled out my old camera with a telephoto lens. Sure enough, Stella and her group were right there on the 7th green, exactly where I figured they'd be at that hour. I spent about an hour just watching them. Stella looked like a natural out there, honestly. For a second, I caught myself thinking it was a shame we'd never tried playing mixed doubles together on the weekends, something I might have to suggest if it turned out all my worries were for nothing. On my way back home, I grabbed breakfast at a little cafe. By the time Stella got back from golf, I was already in the backyard cutting the grass. She came out with a cup of tea and called me in to have some. I sat and watched her as she started on our dinner. She must have felt me staring, because she turned around and asked, "Are you all right, honey?" "I'm fine. Why do you ask?" "I don't know, you've just seemed a bit distant lately." I tried to play it off. "I didn't seem too distant yesterday or last night, did I?" She laughed a little. "No, but you've seemed off all week." "Probably just work," I told her. "We've got some big projects that need finishing soon, so I'll probably be pulling some late nights until they're done." But Stella wasn't convinced. "I don't think it's the projects. You'll get the Greenway job sorted, no problem, and Patterson's never given you any trouble before. Is something else bothering you? That made me stop and think. How did Stella know which projects my team was working on? That's confidential information. I'd never mention the clients' names at home. We aren't supposed to discuss it with anyone outside of work. Suddenly, I wondered if someone was sharing work secrets with her. Maybe her so-called friend was talking business with her on the side. That thought just made me angrier. That night, I couldn't perform in bed again. I told Stella I was definitely going to see a doctor this week, just as an excuse. For the next several days, I started watching my work team more closely, trying to figure out who might be talking to Stella behind my back. Later in the week, I even drove out to check that motor lodge near Asda. Finding what I was looking for was surprisingly easy. Among all my colleagues, only one fit the bill. So, the next Saturday, I went through the motions as if I were heading to my usual golf game. I kept my eyes open, and sure enough, I spotted a black BMW with tinted windows waiting in a side street, just out of sight. Instead of leaving, I circled the block, parked my car, and waited. After about 10 minutes, my old CB radio crackled. One of my 3 friends, who'd agreed to help, let me know things were on the move. We kept a close tail as they headed out toward the Asda superstore, where Danny parked his BMW. I watched as Stella and Danny walked across the road to the motor lodge. Honestly, I couldn't figure out why they needed to book a room there. We've got a king-sized bed at home. Maybe Stella felt guilty about using our own bed for an affair. While the 4 of us hung back and waited for Danny and Stella to disappear, I walked over and unlocked Danny's car. He always kept a spare set of keys locked in his office desk, and since we worked together, I had access to everything. I popped the fuel cap and poured in 4 jars of thick honey, followed by 2 bags of sugar for good measure. Sure, it was probably overkill, but I took a little satisfaction knowing that BMW would be out of commission for a while, and Danny would be facing a hefty repair bill. After that, my friends and I made our way toward the motor lodge. I think they came along to keep me from doing something crazy in the heat of the moment. Earlier that week, during my research mission at the motor lodge, I'd managed to have a duplicate key made for the room Danny booked. He made the mistake of using his company card, so I had access to his receipts and statements. Danny always reserved the same room so he could see his beloved BMW parked across at Asda. It wasn't hard for me to request the same room and slip away to get a key cut. My only worry was that he'd spot my car, but apparently, he didn't. I quietly unlocked the hotel room and eased the door open. The layout made it so they couldn't see the door from the bed, and I'd even taken the time to oil the hinges and the lock a couple days earlier to keep things quiet. To my surprise, they weren't on the bed. I found Stella, completely unclothed, kneeling on the sofa, looking out the window. Danny was behind her, and from the way they were carrying on, there was no mistaking what I was seeing. The TV was blaring with one of those hotel adult movies, probably drowning out the noise of us coming in. While I was standing there in shock, I heard Danny say, "Come on, Stella, can't you just let me? You let Roger do it." Stella shot back, "No, Danny. I've told you before, that's only for Roger. If you keep pestering me about it, that's the end of everything between us. I told you, I only go along with this because you're a friend." And the way she said friend, I couldn't help but wonder if she really meant fiend. Danny wouldn't let it go. "Oh, come off it, Stella. You come with me because you want something real." "You must be joking," she snapped. "Roger could outlast you any day." "Yeah, right. I'll show you what I've got." But he didn't get to finish. I'd had enough, and my anger boiled over. I charged in and delivered a solid kick, catching him right where it hurt. Danny doubled over, gasping for air, and lunged forward. In the confusion, Stella's head hit the window so hard I honestly thought the glass might break. Danny tumbled off the sofa and onto the floor, and I didn't hold back, landed a few more blows before my buddy stepped in and pulled me away. One of my friends tossed a sheet towards Stella and barked, "Cover up." Stella just stared at me, trying to get her bearings, clearly dazed from hitting her head. When she finally realized who I was, she started screaming and broke down in tears. I couldn't look at her anymore. My friends and I turned and left the room. As we walked down the hallway, a few curious faces poked out from other hotel doors, probably startled by Stella's cries, but nobody said a word as we left the building. We headed back to our cars and drove off. On my way home, I passed a police car and an ambulance with sirens blaring, heading toward the motor lodge. I could only guess what was going on behind us. About 2 hours later, a police cruiser pulled up in front of my house. Stella got out, accompanied by a policewoman, and they both came inside. They found me at the kitchen table, drinking a cup of tea. Stella stood silently, but the policewoman spoke up first. Your wife was afraid to come home. She's worried you might hurt her. Without looking up, I replied, Stella, in 25 years together, have I ever laid a hand on you? She stayed quiet. Well, have I? I pressed, my voice a little sharper. I noticed the policewoman's hand edge toward her baton. Stella finally whispered, no, you've never been violent toward me. When I walked in on you with him this morning, did I touch you? She shook her head, no, you didn't lay a finger on me. Then why would you think I'd hurt you now? She looked at me, tears in her eyes. Roger, does this mean you're going to forgive me? I shook my head. Not a chance. I'm leaving as soon as my friends get here with the van. I already talked to my lawyer earlier in the week. The paperwork started. You can explain everything to the kids. Let's see how you spin it, me catching you with another man in a hotel room. Stella broke down and leaned against the policewoman, who tried to comfort her. The officer said, I think your wife should see a doctor. The doctor's number is on the board, I replied. I don't have time to call. I think my friends just arrived with the van. For the next hour or so, I was busy packing up my things and moving them out. Another police car showed up, and for most of the move, there were 4 officers in the house. Some kept Stella company in the living room while the others watched me pack and even helped carry boxes to the van. To my surprise, our family doctor came over and joined Stella and the police in the lounge. By 4 in the afternoon, the van was loaded and I headed out to the apartment I'd rented. That evening, around 9, my son showed up at my new place. I assumed the police gave him my address, since I'd had to provide it to them. Nobody ever directly asked about what happened with Danny, but it was clear they all knew I'd been involved and wanted to make sure I was okay. My son came over and told me his mom had come clean about what she'd been up to. He said he was pretty upset with her, but after all, she's still his mother. When Stella broke the news to our daughter, my girl just walked right out of the house in tears, saying she never wanted to see her mom again. I tried to reassure my son, telling him his sister would probably come around after a few days. Emotions run high, but time usually softens things. He wanted to know what I planned to do next. I told him honestly, I didn't see any other way but to get a divorce. I hoped Stella wouldn't drag things out or fight me on it, because going for irreconcilable differences is the simplest and least painful way for everyone. He gave me a hug and we both got emotional for a bit before he headed out. That's how things played out. The divorce was finalized in just a few months. We didn't have any alimony or ongoing support in the settlement, so Stella couldn't afford to keep the house. I paid her half of what the place was worth and moved back in, while she ended up staying with my son's family. According to him, his wife keeps a close eye on Stella. Honestly, I think my son and daughter-in-law are secretly hoping we'll patch things up someday. Since that day, I haven't spoken to Stella. My son says she still hasn't offered any real explanation for what happened with Danny, no excuses, no reasons, nothing. He thinks maybe even Stella doesn't understand why she did it. He's floated the idea that it might have been some sort of midlife crisis. Or maybe it's related to all those hormone changes women go through later in life. Who knows? Tomorrow, we're both going to be at my granddaughter's christening. My son specifically asked me to come alone. Since I'm out most evenings, I get the sense they think I might be seeing someone new. I don't bother correcting them. Honestly, I think leaving them guessing probably makes things harder for Stella, and maybe that's only fair. Still, I suppose I'll have to talk to her face to face eventually. As for young Danny? He quit the job not long after. Some of the guys from my team went to visit him in the hospital and let him know that coming back wasn't really an option. They told him he'd end up back in the ER if he tried. Not that it mattered. With the company's strict rules about workplace relationships, Danny would have been fired anyway. Word got around that he'd been involved with another man's wife before, too. Funny thing is, the guys on my team never brought it up to me directly. Maybe they feel guilty. Some of them knew about that other affair, and they know if I'd caught wind of it, I would have stepped in, and probably uncovered what was going on with Stella at the same time. Danny never pressed charges over what happened that day. The police weren't too happy about it, but that's just how it went. Later, I found out it was actually his ex-wife who caught him cheating with a neighbor, not the other way around like he'd always claimed. Some people just can't help themselves, I guess. What's next for me? Honestly, I have no idea. From looking at the company credit card records, I learned that Danny had been booking that same hotel room nearly every Saturday for almost a year. I still love Stella, but I can't imagine ever really getting past what she did. I miss her like crazy, that's the truth, but I just don't think I could trust her again. I guess maybe, in another world, I could see us being friends or something, as long as there's no more secrets. But I definitely wouldn't risk my health for a fling, not after all that's happened. That's just how life goes. And to think, maybe none of this would have happened if I wasn't such a sucker for tomato ketchup.